which are A. Diversifying the economy with robust MSME growth. B. Investing in critical infrastructure. C. Strengthening security and ensuring good governance. D. Enabling a vibrant, educated, and healthy populace. E. Reducing poverty. And F. Minimizing regional, economic, and social disparities. The 2022 appropriation, therefore, is a budget of economic growth and sustainability. Defense and internal security will continue to be our top priority. We remain firmly committed to the security of life, property, and investment nationwide. We will continue to ensure that our gallant men and women in the armed forces, police, and paramilitary units are properly equipped, enumerated, and well motivated. The 2022 budget is also the first in our history where MDAs were clearly advised on gender responsive budgeting. These are part of critical steps in our efforts to distribute resources fairly and reach vulnerable groups in our society. Distinguished members of the National Assembly, the 2022 and 2024 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper set out the parameters of the 2022 budget as follows. A. Conservative oil price benchmark of $57 US per barrel. B. Daily oil production estimate of 1.88 million barrels, including condensates of 300,000 to 400,000 barrels per day. C. Exchange rate of 410 naira and 10 naira 15 kobo per United States dollar. And D. Projected GDP growth rate of 4.2% and 13% inflation rate. Based on these fiscal assumptions and parameters, total federally collectible revenue is estimated to 17.7 trillion naira in 2022. Total federally contributable revenue is estimated to 12.72 trillion naira in 2022. Total revenue available to fund the 2022 federal budget is estimated at 10.13 trillion naira. This includes grants and aid of 63.38 billion naira, as well as the revenue of 63 government-owned enterprises. Oil revenue is projected at 3.16 trillion naira. Non-oil taxes are estimated at 2.13 trillion naira, and federal government independent revenues are projected to be 1.82 trillion naira. A total expenditure of 16.39 trillion naira is proposed for the federal government in 2022. The proposed expenditure comprises A. Statutory transfers of 768.28 billion naira. B. Non-debt recurrent costs of 6.8 trillion naira. And C. Personnel costs of 4.1 trillion naira. D. Pensions, gratuities, and retirees' benefits of 577 billion naira. E. Overheads of 792.39 billion naira. And F. Capital expenditure of 5.35 trillion naira, including the capital component of statutory transfers. G. Debt service of 3.61 trillion naira. And H. Sinking fund of 290.71 billion naira to retire certain maturing bonds. We expect the total fiscal operations of the federal government to result in a deficit of 6.26 trillion naira. This represents 3.39% of estimated GDP, slightly above the 3% threshold set by the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. Countries around the world have of necessity overshoot their fiscal threshold for the promises to survive and thrive. We need to exceed this threshold, considering our collective desire to continue tracking existential security challenges facing our country. We plan to finance the deficit mainly by new borrowings totaling 5.01 trillion naira, 90.73 billion naira for privatization proceeds and 1.16 trillion naira drawdowns on loans secured for social development projects. Some have expressed concern over our resort to borrowing to finance our fiscal gaps. They are right to be concerned. However, we believe that the debt level of the federal government is still within sustainable limits. Borrowing at specific strategic projects and can be verified publicly. As we are aware, we have witnessed 2 economic recessions within the period of this administration. In both cases, we had to spend our way out of recession, which necessitated a resort to growing the public debt. It is unlikely that our recovery from each of the 2 recessions would have grown as fast without the sustained government expenditure funded by debt. Our target over the medium term is to grow our revenue to GDP ratio from about 8% currently to 15% by 2025. At that level of revenue, the debt service to revenue ratio will cease to be worrying. Put simply, we do not have a debt sustainability problem, but a revenue challenge which we are determined to tackle to ensure our debt remain sustainable. Very importantly, we have endeavored to use the loans to finance critical development projects and programs aimed at improving our economic environment and ensuring effective delivery of public services to our people. We focused on A, the completion of major road and rail projects, B, the effective implementation of power sector projects, C, the provision of potable water, D, construction of irrigation infrastructure and dams across the country, and E, critical health projects such as the strengthening of national emergency medical services and the ambulance system, procurement of vaccines, polio eradication, and upgrading primary health care centers across the 6 geopolitical zones. In 2022, government will further strengthen the framework for concessions and public-private partnerships. Capital projects that are good candidates for PPP by their nature will be developed for private sector participation. We will also explore available opportunities in existing ecosystem for green finance, including the implementation of our sovereign green bond program and leveraging debt for climate swap mechanisms. Our strategies to improve revenue mobilization will be sustained in 2022 with the goal of achieving the following objectives. Safeguard revenues from oil and gas sector. Distinguished senators and honorable members, I commend you for passage of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021. It is my hope that the implementation of the law will boost confidence in our economy and attract substantial investments in the sector. In line with our plan to accompany annual budget with finance bills, partly to support the realization of fiscal projections, current tax and fiscal laws are being reviewed to produce a draft finance bill 2022. It is our intention that our ongoing consultations are completed. The finance bill would be submitted to the National Assembly to be considered alongside the 2022 appropriation bill. Mr. Senate President, Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable members of the National Assembly, this speech would be incomplete without commending the immense patriotic and collective support of the National Assembly in the effort to deliver socio-economic development and democracy dividends for our people. I wish to assure you of the strong commitment of the executive to strengthen the relationship with the National Assembly. Nigeria is currently emerging from a very difficult economic challenge. We must continue to cooperate and ensure that our actions are aimed at accelerating the pace of economic recovery so that we can achieve economic prosperity and deliver on our promises to Nigerian people. The fiscal year 2022 is very crucial to our efforts to ensure that critical projects are completed, put to use, and improve the general conditions of our people. It is with great pleasure, therefore, that I lay before this distinguished joint session of the National Assembly the 2022 budget proposal of the federal government of Nigeria. I thank you most sincerely for your attention. May God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
President Muhammadu Buhari has just discharged a very significant constitutional function of the office of the president. The presentation of the 2022 budget of 16.39 trillion naira to the joint session of the National Assembly. The budget, with the theme economic growth and sustainability, is expected to propose the federal government retained revenue of 10.3 trillion naira with a fiscal deficit of 6.2 trillion naira, which the president said will be financed by new borrowing of 5.01 trillion naira. The President has just presented the budget. The 2022 budget parameter pegged daily crude oil production at 1.88 million barrels per day, crude oil benchmark of 57 United States dollars per barrel, exchange rate of 410.15 for 1 United States dollars. Let me talk. The budget proposes federal government's independent revenue of 1.82 trillion naira, total projected government revenue of 10.1 trillion. He says the debt service of 3.61 trillion and statutory transfer of 768.2 billion.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for that well-delivered speech and the laying of the 2022 budget estimates. Distinguished and honorable members of the National Assembly, the next item on the order paper is the vote of thanks and remarks by the Right Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Femi Bajaba-Mila. Right Honorable Speaker.
His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Professor Yemi Osinbajo, GCON, Vice President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Distinguished Senator Ahmed Lawan, President of the Senate, Chairman of the National Assembly, Deputy President of the Senate and Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Principal Officers of the Senate and House of Representatives, distinguished senators and honorable members of the House of Representatives. In the interest of time, please permit me to stand on the protocol as already established. Good afternoon, and thank you all once more for being here today. On behalf of the members and staff of the National Assembly, I have the honor of extending our sincere appreciation to His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, for coming to the National Assembly today to present the appropriation bill and to seek the approval of Parliament as the Constitution demands. Unfortunately, we are still contending with the deadly and evolving COVID-19 pandemic, and the guidelines regarding the duration and size of public gatherings limits the time we can spend here together today. So today's budget presentation is somewhat abridged in the interest of public health. Yet, we have sufficient time to say the things that need to be communicated to further the best interests of our beloved country. When we resumed the 9th Assembly, we committed to pursuing long-awaited and critical reforms to the appropriation process to ensure that we are better able to deliver on the promise of our national development. Over the last two budget cycles, by the joint effort of the executive and the legislature, we have made significant progress in this regard and achieved reforms that will stand the test of time and count in our favor. These reforms, including establishing a January to December budget cycle, improving oversight procedures, and ensuring greater fidelity to the letter and spirit of our appropriation laws, have led to the measurable improvements in public infrastructure, access to education and housing, healthcare, and transportation, among other things. These improvements, which have had a positive impact on the lives of millions of Nigerians across the country, inspire us to do more. When Mr. President came to the hallowed chamber almost exactly a year ago today, I spoke about our rapidly changing world and the need to use the national budget to prepare our country and our people for the challenges and opportunities of this new age. Today, innovations in technology, the changing nature of global trade, the challenges of cross-border insecurity, and the increasing interdependence of nations, each and together, continue to present challenges we must overcome and opportunities we must embrace. Therefore, as legislators and leaders in government, we have continued obligation to ensure that in considering this appropriation bill, we make all deliberate efforts to ensure that we continue to make critical investments in education, healthcare, public infrastructure, and national security. Through these investments, we can hope to build an economy that provides enough well-paying jobs for our young population so that we can, in our lifetime, end endemic poverty in our country and eradicate the social ills that derive therefrom. Let me express my profound gratitude to the senators and members of the House of Representatives who have, through the budget cycles, shown an unmatched determination to delivering the annual budget on time, in line with our commitment to a January to December budget cycle. I have seen legislators working through the day and night, forgoing all other considerations in a joint effort to deliver a national budget that meets the highest expectations of the Nigerian people. Therefore, I am confident that the National Assembly will give the appropriation bill the prompt consideration it demands. And for the next 2 to 3 months will be for the strictest scrutiny of the budget estimates. However, let me also use this opportunity to say to the heads of ministries, departments, and agencies of the federal government of Nigeria that the determination of the National Assembly to deliver a timely budget will not derogate from our responsibility to ensure exhaustive consideration of the bill. We will demand a thorough accounting for the funds previously appropriated, disbursed, and expended. And we will take steps to hold to account those who fail to provide the records we need to make informed decisions on the appropriation bill. This is the responsibility of the National Assembly, and we will live up to it. Over the past year, the House has passed several important resolutions relating to healthcare access, primary education, rural infrastructure deficits, and national security that require actual funding. Where these restrictions have not been included in the appropriation bill, the House will work with the Senate and the Executive to see that the final version of this appropriation bill includes necessary allocations to implement these resolutions and give full effect to the best wishes of the House. I thank His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, the Budget Office, Honorable Ministers, and all those who contributed to the drafting of this appropriation bill. The National Assembly will build on your efforts. Together, we will deliver an appropriation act that provides real solutions to national problems, unlocks economic potential, secures our country, and brings a future we can all look forward to and be proud of. Finally, let me appreciate the clerk to the National Assembly, Architect Olatunde Ojo, and the entire management and staff whose efforts have made this joint session a resounding success. And I thank all of you who have presented yourselves to this hallowed chamber to participate in this fundamental democratic tradition. May God keep and guide us all, and may God bless our Federal Republic.
The National Anthem.
Well, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, there commending President Muhammadu Buhari for the sustained presentation of annual budget and assured that the National Assembly will give expeditious consideration of the budget. I am Ignatius Nkwo. And at this moment in time, I will now hand you over to the lobby of the National Assembly, where my colleague Vivian and John are standing by to speak with some persons.
Yeah, are you the one to speak?
No, it's not a video. I'm not the one to speak. Stand by. We haven't even seen that. Oh, I said it's shooting your camera. What are you queuing me for? I'm supposed to. Sign off what? It is Ignatius that is there.
Who is the lady to sign off?
Let me call her.
Just hold it.
They want to frame you.
I'm not the person who should be on camera. Which was red. Is that your intention? Then I will say I am not running commentary. Commentary is a thing, which is what we say. Now there's going to be a studio discussion.
We are standing by for interview. And you say sign up. Sign up how? Is it not there they will sign up?
The 22 appropriation bill to the National Assembly, that is the combined House with the National Assembly, talking about the Senate and the House of Representatives. And we are looking at an estimated budget of 16.39, call it 16.4 trillion